Today I want to discuss one certain aspect of the economy, economic growth, and the problem it presents in our strive for environmental sustainability. Economic growth is defined as an increase in the production of goods and services over a specific period. To be more accurate, the measurement must remove the effect of inflation. The most well-known and frequently used measurement of economic growth is
GDP,
which is calculated through the total of consumer spending, business investment, and government spending, plus net export, which is total exports minus total import. One of the few widely agreed notions among countries is that economic growth, with all the benefits it's expected to bring, needs to go up. The higher, the better. Undeniably, economic growth does have certain benefits to it. Economic growth creates more profit for businesses. As a result, stock prices go up, giving companies capital to invest upon and hire more employees. As more jobs are created, incomes rise, and so will living standard. Consumers now have more money to buy additional products and services. And as Robert J. Gordon, an American economist, once said, more growth is better, period. However, with the current way growth is being measured, it can deter our attention from other issues not included in its calculation, like social inequality, maldistribution of wealth, and the focus of our video today, the environment well-being. The pursuit of constant growth is the reality in most countries, and it doesn't take an expert to see that such a thing is unlikely, if not impossible, to attain. Key materials input that fuel growth are limited and many are unretrievable. Some of them are already near peaking. In our endeavor to maintain a positive growth, humans are also trespassing many of our planet's thresholds, wreaking havoc on the ecological system that we heavily rely upon. As our current economy depends upon consumer buying power as one of its drives, overconsumption is being encouraged, leading to the production of low-quality products to increase purchasing and the promotion of the throwaway culture, resulting in pollution and resource depletion. A narrow emphasis on growth can and is leading to a failure to implement environmental policies that may present a hindrance to economic growth, even in cases where the long-term impacts can exceed the short-term costs. And the idea that there needs to be a hard trade-off between the goals of economic growth and environmental sustainability doesn't really help either. Framing things in terms of either-or choices will only serve to make our strive for environmental sustainability seemingly even more impossible to achieve. One of the arguments in support of economic growth is the problems it's supposed to help solving, like raising the level of happiness or standard of living. While this is true among developing countries, where economic growth does translate into large gains in life satisfaction, if the resources generated by growth are used to satisfy people's basic needs. But in high-income societies, the effect is less obvious. Growing national wealth is not always accompanied by growing national happiness. Between 1946 and 1970, the US witnessed remarkable economic expansion, yet surveys failed to show any upsurge in happiness throughout this period. Interestingly, works like Capital in the 21st Century by the French economist Thomas Piketty also shows that over recent decades, ordinary wages in industrialized countries like the US have stopped rising in line with productivity and growth. A growing economy means more money, but maldistribution of that wealth can mean that those who need it the most are getting the least. Increasing alarm about climate change and other environmental threats has given birth to the degrowth movement, which calls upon advanced countries to embrace zero or even negative GDP growth, and argues that boosting growth in industrialized countries isn't the answer to improving quality of life or environmental well-being. The focus should then shift to sectors like care, education, renewable energy, and public transport, things that improve human and ecological wellness, rather than only attract investment purely because they generate profits. A movement requiring changes to a system that have existed for so long is bound to be met with criticism. It would be ignoring the positive impacts economic growth can have. Steadily increasing GDPs can allow governments to spend more money on schools, hospitals, and medicine research. There's also a lack of information on what degrowth means for poor developing countries, where economic growth still plays a major role in reducing poverty. rather than no growth or shrinking economy. According to Michael Spence, a Nobel Prize laureate, it may be healthier economically to accept a slower growth rate, but still a positive one, and in the same time prioritizing policies that address things like inequality. This idea, like the degrowth movement, is admittedly somewhat utopian. Again, this isn't a realistic proposal for developing countries, where growth is still needed to get people out of poverty. But among the developed countries, where the economies are already quite large, they may have to start thinking more seriously about the ideas. Maybe it's time for countries to reckon with an economy that doesn't grow quickly anymore, to make room for environmental sustainability and social justice. Thank you for listening.